So here we go. So today we're talking about rectangles, squares, and rhombuses. So what makes a rectangle a rectangle? What's the first major defining feature of a rectangle that makes it a rectangle? Four right angles. Okay? Four right angles. Good job, Braxton. Four right angles makes a rectangle a rectangle. Okay, we're going to jump down to a rhombus. What's the biggest defining part of being a rhombus? All right, guys, lids down because you aren't listening. Oliver! Oliver! So you had to lose your game you were on, whatever. What's the biggest defining thing that makes a rhombus a rhombus? What we look at. Not the diagonal sides, but the sides. What makes a rhombus? All the sides are what in a rhombus? Congruent, equal. Yep. All four sides are equal. Okay? That makes a rhombus a rhombus. If it has four equal sides, it's a rhombus. If it has four right angles, it's a rectangle. If it has both four equal sides and four right angles, it's a square. So, a rhombus, a square is a rhombus, and a square is a rectangle. Are all rectangles squares? No. But are all squares rectangles? Yes. Are all rhombuses squares? No. But are all squares rhombuses? Yes. And the thing about these three things are they're all parallelograms. So all those 6 rules that I put on the board about parallelograms today for the quiz, with opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary, diagonals bisect each other. Okay? Those rules all pertain to these. So you have to know all those rules, plus the new ones. What are the new rules? Well, if you have a rhombus, the diagonals are what to each other? What does this picture show? Diagonals are perpendicular to each other. Diagonals are perpendicular in a rhombus. Okay? This picture shows that the diagonals bisect opposite angles. This angle will be congruent to this angle. And then henceforth, this angle will be congruent to this angle. And here, this angle will be congruent to this angle, and this angle will be congruent to this angle. Now, what was the last rule just before this about diagonals of a rhombus? They are perpendicular. They form a right angle, right? All of a sudden, we have a right triangle with 63 and 27. All I need to know is one angle here. If I know this angle, because I already know this angle, that lets me know this angle, which lets me know this angle, which lets me know this angle, which lets me know this one, and so on. We'll see that in this example. If this is 53, and we know we have a right angle here, because it's a rhombus, and the diagonals are perpendicular. If this is 53, what's this angle right down here? How about 53? What's this angle over here? 53. And this angle right here? 53. Okay? And then, what's this angle up here? 37. And this angle over here? 37 and 37 and 37. Okay? So once I know one angle of a rhombus, I know all of them. Okay? Because we have a 90-degree angle there and we've got bisecting angles. Okay? All right. Let's say angle TPS equals 22 degrees. Let's figure out every other angle. When I say TPS, which angle am I talking about? P, and it's the big one, or one of the little ones? Little ones. It's this one right here. TPS means this angle right here. There's some people in the other class that couldn't figure out that that's what that meant. Okay, we're halfway through geometry. You got to know what things mean. Okay, so TPS is that. What's angle QPT? 22. What's angle PST? What's angle PST, Oliver? Because you're not paying attention. Yeah, you got to pay attention sometime during class. Okay? We said this is 90 and this is 22. How many degrees are in triangle? 180. So if you take 180 minus 90, you get 90. 90 minus 22 is 68. Okay? So PST is 68. What is PQR? Now this is a little different. So just don't shout out an answer. You got to figure this out. Angle PQR. PQR, how big would that one be? PQR. What do you think, Olivia? 136 degrees. Because it's 68 plus 68. Okay? So you should be able to figure out any angles of a rhombus now. When you get one, you should be able to figure them all out. Okay. What this drawing says is in a rectangle, the diagonals are equal. This is equal to this. Okay? No matter what size of rectangle we have, the diagonals are always going to be equal to each other. So, Paul is training his horse to run the course at a pace of 4 meters per second or faster. Paul rides his horse from D to C to E to B. If he rides it in a minute and 30 seconds, did he go fast enough to be 4 meters per second or faster? Okay. So what we got to do is figure out distances here. Okay. And to figure out the distance, do we know EB or EC? Do they give us the information to tell us that? No. So what we know is this. We know we have a rectangle, which makes a right triangle. If we know two sides of a right triangle, how do we find the third side? How would we know the third side? What's the magic words of the Greek guy? Pythagorean theorem, named after Pythagoras, a Greek guy. Okay, Pythagorean theorem, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So c squared equals 80 squared plus 192 squared, which is 6,400 plus somebody, 192 squared. It's like, I don't know, 30,000 now. 2. Well, you already got the final answer. You're working way ahead, Olivia. What's 192 squared? Somebody. 36,864. Okay. If we add those together, it is 43,464. No, 264? 264. If we take the square root of each side, Olivia says it's 208, which is correct. So this whole side is 208. How long is D to E? If this whole side is 208, how far is it from D to E? 104. E to B, 104. E to C, 104, because the diagonals are congruent. So they're the same. So E to C and C to B. So the horse went from D to C. How long is DC? 192. And then the horse went from C to E, which is how long? 104. Then the horse went from E to B, which is another 104. 192 plus 104 is 296. 296 plus 104 is 400. Now, he rode that course in 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is how many seconds? 90. So 400 meters over 90 seconds is 4.4 repeating meters per second. Is that faster or slower than 4 meters per second? Faster. So the horse is already doing what it's supposed to. Okay, I'm going to skip over that in concerns of time. All right. From W to Y and from X to Z, if you add those two up, they add up to 92. If it's a square, okay, if this is a square is also a what? Rectangle. And a rhombus. But in this case, we're worried about being rectangle. So the diagonals are equal to each other. So if WY plus XZ equals 92, then what's WY going to be equal to? How long is WY going to be equal to? 46. So then, how long is WP going to be equal to? 23. So this is 23, and this is 23. What happens is we have a right triangle, and if you know two sides of a right triangle, that's your base and your height. The area of a triangle, because they want to know what's the area of that triangle part, is 1/2 the base times the height, which is 1/2 of 23 times 23, which gives me a decimal answer, something 0.5. I'm not sure what it is. It's like 300 and something 0.5, or 200, up big 200 or a small 300 number. 23 times 23, and then divided by 2. What do we get? 264.5. That's the area of that. Okay? All right. So in summary, a rectangle is a parallelogram. What's distinguishing about a rectangle? How do you know something's a rectangle? Right off the bat, because it has? 4 sides. There are all kinds of things that has 4 sides. It has 4 right angles, makes it a rectangle. Okay? 4 right angles. We also know that opposite sides are parallel. We know that opposite sides are congruent. We know opposite angles are congruent. We know the diagonals bisect each other. But the special thing is diagonals are congruent in a rectangle. The diagonals are congruent. In a rhombus, what we know is opposite sides are congruent. All 4 sides are congruent. That's what we look for a rhombus. Then after that, once we know that, if the diagonals are perpendicular, it's a rhombus. And if the diagonals bisect opposite angles, we know we're talking about a rhombus. Okay? And a square is both a rhombus and a rectangle. Okay? So those are the 3 objects we talked about today. So we have 8 problems to do. Yes, some of them have multiple parts, so it'll take a little bit. We get out at 27 after. You might not get it done in class. You might actually have homework for this class.